Hey everyone, I'm Jake. Welcome to Green World product training video. The product that we are talking about today is Gluco Block. Gluco Block is one of the most innovative products in Green World. It is an amalgamation of all those natural ingredients which have the potential to naturally regulate blood sugar level in case of people who suffers from diabetes. In this video, I will provide you detailed information about all those natural ingredients present in GlucoBlock and how GlucoBlock effectively helps people with diabetes. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of GlucoBlock, first I would like to briefly touch on the subject of diabetes so that we understand the seriousness of this health condition and take the required action. Starting with the first thing first, I'm going to talk about some statistics and facts provided by Canadian Diabetes Association. Every 3 minutes, another Canadian is diagnosed with diabetes. 29% of Canadians are currently living with diabetes or pre-diabetes. And if the current trend continues, this ratio will rise to 33% by the year 2025. Right now, diabetes is costing the country $14 billion every year. So these are some very alarming numbers when it comes to diabetes. Now, I'm going to briefly touch upon what is diabetes, how many types of diabetes are there, and what is the main reason that people suffer from diabetes. Diabetes is a health condition in which our body is unable to store and utilize sugar in the form of glucose in our liver tissues and in our muscle tissues. When I talk about sugar, it does not specifically mean table sugar. All the sources of carbohydrates, basically when they get digested and broken down in the nutrient form, they are stored as sugar or glucose in our muscle tissues and in our liver tissues. Now, to perform this function of storing sugar in the form of glucose in muscle tissues and liver tissues, we have a hormone in our body called insulin. Let's talk about insulin. So, what is insulin? Insulin is a hormone. There is an organ in our body called pancreas that is located behind our stomach and it releases hormone into our digestive system. So in the healthy body, whenever we eat any kind of carbohydrates, it gets broken down into sugar. So that sugar starts floating in our blood and that's what we call blood sugar level. So basically, after ingestion of any carbohydrate, our blood sugar level rises up. In response to that, pancreas, there are beta cells in pancreas. Those beta cells releases the hormone called insulin. Insulin is a hormone that causes our cells to uptake all that available sugar in our blood and store it in the form of glucose so that it can be used later on whenever our body needs energy. And in this way, the blood sugar levels in our blood stabilizes. So as you can see on the slide, insulin is basically like a key. In our cells, we have insulin receptors as well as glucose channels. So insulin fits like a key into the insulin receptors and that way it opens up or unlocks the glucose channel in our cells and all the available sugar start going inside our cells through those glucose channels. So this is how insulin functions in case of normal healthy person. But in case of diabetes, situation is different. To understand that, first we need to understand different types of diabetes. So primarily there are 3 types of diabetes: type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, gestational diabetes, and now there are some other forms of diabetes as well which are caused by use of steroids or cystic fibrosis as well. So let's first understand the most common types of diabetes, that is type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. Out of type 1 and type 2 diabetes also, 90% of the cases in this world are type 2 diabetes. Only 10% people suffer from type 1 diabetes. Unfortunately, type 1 diabetes is very difficult to be prevented or controlled using natural therapy. In case of type 1 diabetes, people have to rely on insulin shots. But the good news is that type 2 diabetes is definitely preventable, reversible, and it can be controlled by using natural therapies. So now I'm going to explain the basic difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. In case of type 1 diabetes, beta cells in pancreas does not produce any insulin. Type 1 diabetes is basically an autoimmune disorder in which our own immune system destroys the beta cell in pancreas, and that's why there is no insulin available. And in the absence of insulin, it is impossible to store the sugar in blood into muscle tissues and liver tissues. That's why people have to rely on insulin shots to regulate blood sugar in case of type 1 diabetes. On the other hand, in case of type 2 diabetes, there are beta cells producing insulin. Insulin is there, but our muscle cells or liver cells does not respond to that insulin, and because of which insulin is unable to store the circulating sugar into those cells. This condition is called insulin resistance, which means even though the insulin is there, our body is resisting to it and is not letting insulin do its job. Third type of diabetes is gestational diabetes. This is a temporary condition and it mostly happens with women during pregnancy. During pregnancy, there is a lot of hormonal fluctuation that takes place in a woman's body, especially between hormones like estrogen and progesterone, because of which it leads to inflammation and again causes the condition called insulin resistance. So again, insulin is present, but a woman's body stops responding to insulin. In case of gestational diabetes, most of the women fully recover from this condition after delivery of the baby. Once the normal hormonal function resumes, insulin resistance goes away, and with some lifestyle changes, they get back to normal and stabilized blood sugar levels. When we talk about the diagnosis of diabetes, there are these tests which you have to get done, as you can see on the slide. There are some symptoms which are very specific, and if you have any of these symptoms, it is advisable to get the test done. These symptoms are frequent urination, excessive thirst, blurry vision, extreme fatigue, increased hunger, weight loss or weight gain, and sensation of pins and needles in your feet. Unfortunately, diabetes affects our entire system and it creates many other complications. It affects our brain and leads to cerebrovascular disease. It also affects our eyes, diabetic retinopathic, glaucoma, cataract, then coronary heart disease, tooth decay and cavities, diabetic nephropathy affecting the kidneys. So you can see that it affects entire body. So of course there are prescription medications like metformin which are available and often prescribed to people. Well, I'm not an expert in prescription medication, but what I'm an expert in are these wonderful natural products of Green World, and that's what I'm going to talk about now in detail. Gluco Block. So as you can see in the picture, different ingredients which are included in Gluco Block: alpha lipoic acid, berberine, bitter melon, chromium, bilberry extract, cinnamon, biotin. Now let's break down all these ingredients one by one and understand their relevance for controlling blood sugar levels. Alpha lipoic acid. As a coenzyme of carbohydrate metabolism, it helps to turn glucose into energy. So basically, whatever sugar is floating in your blood, when it is converted into energy, it will help for blood sugar level to go down, and that's what alpha lipoic acid will do. It will convert that sugar into energy. It is an antioxidant, so that way it helps to also neutralize free radicals and reduce inflammation. It increases the number or activation of glucose transporters, and that way once again it helps in better storage of circulating sugar in the blood into muscles and liver cells. Let's move on to our next ingredient, berberine. So berberine are these red color berries in diabetic patient with poor B cell functions. It improves insulin circulation via reactivating the exhausted beta cells. It lowers blood insulin levels via improving insulin sensitivity. So we discussed earlier that insulin resistance is one of the main cause of type 2 diabetes, and berberine can actually increase the insulin sensitivity, which means that it enables our body to respond better to insulin. It also lowers cholesterol and induces nitric oxide, which results in better blood flow, and thereby it improves the cardiovascular function. Next ingredient is bitter melon. Bitter melon mainly contains three compounds: lysine, charotene and polypeptide P. All these compounds have the natural ability to bring down the elevated blood sugar levels. It also increases glucose uptake and glycogen synthesis in the liver, which means again better utilization of stored sugar in the form of glycogen by our liver. It increases glucose uptake and also glycogen synthesis in liver, muscles and adipose tissues. It also enables our body to better tolerate glucose or sugar levels. Next ingredient is chromium. Chromium also increases insulin sensitivity, means again it enhances our body's response to insulin. It also helps in increasing the number of insulin receptors. Chromium is also necessary for carbohydrate and lipid metabolism, which means it helps in better digestion of carbohydrates so that we don't suffer from sudden spike of sugar levels. Alright, next ingredient is bilberry extract. Bilberry contains antioxidants called anthocyanins, and anthocyanins once again increases the insulin sensitivity. Guys, you have to remember one thing. Insulin sensitivity is the key to reversing type 2 diabetes. It also prevents and delay the occurrence of diabetic retinopathy or cataract and even macular degeneration. It helps to increase the release of NO, that is nitric oxide, and that's how it helps to control blood pressure levels. It helps to lower triglyceride, which is again a key to increasing insulin sensitivity and also improving the cardiovascular health in case of diabetic people. Next ingredient that we have is cinnamon. Cinnamon has long been used traditionally for the purpose of regulating blood sugar levels. Cinnamaldehyde, the active component in cinnamon, helps to regulate the blood sugar levels and bring them down. It also lowers blood cholesterol levels. Alright, last but not the least, biotin. Biotin enhances the performance of insulin. It induces a high level performance of glucokinase, a very important enzyme which is used by our liver to make proper utilization of stored glucose, because all the stored glucose, it needs to be utilized for energy, right? So those were all those natural ingredients which have been used traditionally to lower blood glucose levels. And in Green World GlucoBlock, all these natural ingredients have been put together in the accurate scientific dosages to give you the desired results. And you don't have to consume everything separately. That's why they all are present in just one little capsule of Green World GlucoBlock. In the end, I'm gonna summarize all the benefits that you get by using GlucoBlock. Improves insulin secretion of beta cells, enhances insulin performance, increases insulin receptors sensitivity and response, lowers cholesterol and triglyceride levels, enhances the health of endothelium of blood vessels, prevents and delays cardiovascular complications, prevents and delays cataract and diabetic retinopathy, prevents and delays diabetic neuropathy, prevents and delays diabetic nephropathy. Alright guys, so that was all about glucoblock. In the end, I also want to give you a small piece of advice. Before you start taking glucoblock, it is advisable to consult with your doctor or physician, as in case of diabetes, I'm sure you must be on some diabetic medication. That's why it becomes important to properly incorporate glucoblock into your existing medicine protocol. I hope this information helped you and you make the best use of it for your health. See you guys next time. Bye.